Let me read to you a passage from the first chapter of St. Luke's Gospel, verses 57 to 66. It's the Gospel for the 23rd of December, just before Christmas. St. Luke writes, "When it was time for Elizabeth to have her child, she gave birth to a son. Her neighbours and relatives heard that the Lord had shown her great mercy, and they shared her joy. On the 8th day they came to circumcise the child, and they were going to name him after his father Zechariah. But his mother spoke up and said, 'No, he is to be called John.' They said to her, 'There is no one among your relatives who has that name.' Then they made signs to his father to find out what he would like to name the child. He asked for a writing tablet, and to everyone's astonishment, he wrote, 'His name is John.' Immediately his mouth was opened, and his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak, praising God. The neighbours were all filled with awe, and throughout the hill country of Judea, people were talking about all these things. Everyone who heard this wondered about it, asking, 'What then is this child going to be?' For the Lord's hand was with him." That's from Luke chapter 1, verses 57 to 66. His name is John. You know, I remember when I was a student, I had an acquaintance who studied philosophy and theology. He said to me once that at times one of the things he wondered at was the fact that he was not God. That is to say, if there is a God, and about this he had no doubt, why was it that another, and not he, was the divine being? I am sure this was not a train of thought that grumbled at having to accept God, let alone a rejection of him. It was just a facet of his appreciation of the ontological necessity of the divine being. My friend knew that he himself was not necessary, and by contrast, that God and everything about God is necessary. The natural question that arises in the human mind in respect to everything is, why is this so? Why is there this world? And if this world is due to a creator, well, why is there a creator anyway? Further, if there is a creator, why is he as he is? As I recall it, the Australian atheistic and utilitarian philosopher Peter Singer makes this one of his questions about God, as do many other agnostic philosophers. Who made God? Now, this is certainly not the moment to deal with such a question, except to observe, in passing, that the theist insists that God's simplicity, infinity, and necessity is precisely the answer to the initial question of why all of changing, caused, ordered, contingent, and qualitatively varied reality, the world that is, exists. The world takes us to the absolute, about whom there cannot be the requirement of further explanation. But now, granted the fact of God, how wondrous it is that he is as he is. We know what he is like dimly from his works, creation, but far more from what he has revealed of himself in the course of history. The crowning revelation of all is the person of Jesus Christ. God reveals himself to be love. This is stupendous. Reality is ultimately loving. Ultimately, there is an infinity of love, not in the abstract, but in the concrete, in that the final term of all, the absolute base of everything there is the being who is limitless love and mercy. man would not have guessed this. God transcends all and sustains all by his loving touch. Vulnerable and transient man naturally wonders if there are gods. Are they angry, disinterested, unpredictable, like the world itself? No. The one true God has said, I am pure love and mercy. Mercy. This is what God is. He has revealed himself to be almighty, mighty without limit, and his might is revealed not in whims, as with the gods of the myths, but in a holy mercy. God hates sin, and this holiness is a great and powerful thread running through the history of divine revelation. But this holiness of God is merciful. He is ever seeking out the lost sheep and striving to reclaim them from their sin to his holy love. The most extraordinary of his steps was to have become man, so as to take upon himself the sin of the world. And in doing so, he revealed himself to be a trinity of persons in the one divine being. The Father sent the Son to take away the sin of the world, and then the Father and the Son sent the Spirit to bring this blessing to all mankind through the ministry of the Church. It is a story of mercy. The divine mercy is at the heart of the world and of all reality, and it is this that God wishes man to base his life on. All of this brings us to what is perhaps well, we could call it the central detail in our gospel passage today, which is the naming of John the Baptist. Luke chapter 1 verse 57 to 66. At least it has special prominence. We read that after his birth they were going to name him after his father Zechariah, but his mother spoke up and said, no, he is to be called John. They said to her, there is no one among your relatives who has that name. Then they made signs to his father to find out what he would like to name the child. He asked for a writing tablet, and to everyone's astonishment he wrote, his name is John. That's what the gospel says. The name came from heaven, and it had been communicated to Zechariah by the angel. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John. Luke chapter 1 verse 13. So it was practically the first thing said by the angel about the boy soon to be born. Why John? Well, the name John in English is derived from the Latin Ioannes or Johannes, which is in turn a form of the Greek Ioannes. This Greek name is a form of the Hebrew name Yohanan, also transliterated Yochanan, a short form of the long name Jehochanan, meaning Yahweh is merciful, or God is generous. That's the important point. That's what it means. Yahweh is merciful, God is generous. The name of John was a kind of banner setting forth the ways and character of the God of Revelation. The name had some popularity. Important rabbis bore the name, such as Yohanan ben Zakkai and Yohanan ben Nuri. John Hyrcanus was the first king of the Hasmonean dynasty. But for us, it is full of meaning. John the Baptist, the subject of our gospel passage today, was to be a herald of the divine mercy. The angel said of him before his birth that he will turn many of the people of Israel to the Lord their God, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. Luke chapter 1 verse 16 to 17. After his birth, Zechariah, his father, moved by the Holy Spirit, said of him that God has shown the mercy promised to our ancestors and has remembered his holy covenant. By the tender mercy of our God, drawn from on high, the dawn from on high, rather, will break upon us. From Luke chapter 2 verse 72 to 78. John the Baptist is a grand witness to the mercy of God, to God whose might is revealed in his mercy. Let us trust in the mercy of God.